Hi, today I'm going to talk about Christianity and how it has removed Christ and has lost, or has lost its way. Many of our Christian leaders, without a spiritual experience in the soul, beyond the mind, manipulate others like they manipulate themselves. At the National Prayer Breakfast, filled with evangelicals, Trump mocked Jesus and what he said in the Sermon on the Mount. And Jesus leaders and Christian leaders laughed and cheered. They can't even help themselves, so they can't help their congregations transcend beyond the pain to let go of their suffering. They waste our time chasing anger, hate, fear, and sins, while enlightened churches keep an eye on love, compassion, and divinity within. Church is not about going one day a week and donating money, because it is about communion with the soul 24/7. It is a time to correct behaviors and follow Christ's example, not to judge, condemn, or put others down. Jesus talked about being compassionate and kind to others and not point fingers. He was all about love and the divinity within, because when we judge, we have no time for love. When we experience the soul, we love, know who we are, and do what is right. Because it is right, not because someone told us what to do. The soul is pure being, as it does not command or force a way of life, because it is easing into who we are and our way to love. When we commune with the divinity within, we observe our mind and thoughts without identifying with them, because we are the consciousness of the soul with a mind to use and not abuse. Our mind judges and can be manipulated, but once we observe our thoughts from the soul, we heal and quiet the mind, accepting ourselves and others beyond our emotions, reactions, and way of thinking. Some churches are leading the way with love, compassion, and caring for people, even raising their voices like Jesus did for the oppressed, fighting against assemblies that abuse others. The people who are mocked, and driven away from Christianity are the very people Jesus loved and associated with. He did not disregard and banish them, but worked to bring about change within them, and not by condemning their sexual identity. In Matthew 25:45, Jesus said, "Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me." A lot of negatives. So in translation, he said, "And the way you treat the low, poor, and outcasts is the way you treat me." When we grow from the inside out, we feel a spiritual force, a moving spirit that teaches us, because only the soul can teach spirituality. It is surprising how many Christians are against what Jesus taught, as they stand up for injustice, disturbing our Christian values and our society. The separation of church and state was established to protect Christianity, as government does not have the authority in the realm of individual consciousness. A Christianity that rejects and is divorced from what Jesus taught is a Christianity that has lost its way, because it has become a tool of the rich. It is hypocritical, dishonest, and deceitful to say, "I love God," and then create hate, so good Christians run away from churches and take Christ out, which is taking Christ out of Christianity. Courageous souls leaving the church are not lost, because they are changing harmful patterns of behaviors in themselves. They realize that they were not progressing in a negative environment that applies hate and anger to manipulate minds. Therefore, they leave the church to apply a new fountain of inspiration to reach a new dimension in life that is more positive and spiritual. They have become more committed to Jesus without negative patterns of hate by converting emotions to spirituality at home or in a new church to get better results. When we listen to our soul and follow the Spirit, then Christ's consciousness reveals the mysteries of love and happiness. Joy does not depend on our permissions or possessions, title, or who we are or what we do, because there is no path to happiness, as just being happy is the way. Many Christians have escaped churches that condemn, force, and put others in danger by pushing them beyond the margins of society, making them vulnerable to hate crimes. Christians with integrity have rebelled against church atrocities against others, against Christian wrath and religious hypocrisy that is used as a tool for the powerful to manipulate others to their advantage. According to an article by Harriet Sherwood, a conservative estimate of $1.2 trillion is flowing through religious institutions in USA every year without counting, this is without counting their physical assets, the huge churches that are shrines to the ego, reflecting material wealth and power and not our true essence. Spirituality and happiness does not come from an expensive church or riches. As Yoda said, train yourself to let go of everything you feared to lose. The soul is beyond the mind, the ego, and it is freed from materialism and immune to greed and power. The soul is not lower or superior than anyone, so it is open to the mystical enchantment of spirituality. People who are spiritual are for spiritual progress and social change as they mature to their true self, on a journey inward to the soul where they develop love and compassion. They might leave a church that is destructive and bows down to politicians, but they are not leaving the Spirit. The impact to abuse children, fraud, deceit, and malicious extremism is as serious as these churches have lost their way. Churches want to transform the world, but they first must make a positive shift to the wisdom of Jesus instead of dying in their imposed exclusion. Therefore, we have a choice of inclusion where everyone is invited to visit the divinity within, or we can choose exclusion for money and power. The journey inward raises the possibility of another resurrection of Christ, a second coming of Christ by uncovering the Christ consciousness that is within each one of us. This consciousness is inside everyone, and it has always been there. So it is sad that Christianity makes people afraid of Christian spirituality. Christian mysticism opens Christian hearts to a love for everyone, especially the outcast and people of different religions. Jesus demonstrates this in John 4:13-14, where he comes into contact with a Samaritan woman at a well who is not well thought of. Jews hated Samaritans like her, so Jesus, loving everyone, spoke first. "Would you give me a drink, please?" After that, Jesus said, "The water that I shall give you shall never thirst, because it will spring up into everlasting life." In John 4:24, Jesus says, "God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." That is the water Jesus was referring to. Jesus is referring to go deep well, that the deep well is within our soul, the divinity that is eternal and fulfilling. Joy in spirituality is just being, not a course of action, not a commandment, but a choice to relax in the soul. A big, beautiful church will not make us spiritual unless we choose to be happy, because it does not come from the building, but from inside us. What we are trying to find in church is already inside us, waiting to be discovered. Therefore, we just need to become aware of the divinity within, as Jesus said. Christianity has lost its way, chasing money and power, worshiping the rich and powerful politicians as a strange god. To con us, preachers give us hope after we die, but they don't care about the present, so they push their strange god's agenda of oppression, racism, sexual dominance, homophobia, and exclusion as a Christian idea. The churches that follow Jesus tell us that everyone has a purpose in life and that we should love everyone and bring out their special talent. Jesus tells us that when we serve and minister to others, we come into contact with the divinity within them and ourselves, and it is bliss. This is the kind of approach the church needs to take to help understand that we are the consciousness of the soul. To keep contact with the divinity within, the church can help us become more aware of our consciousness instead of manipulating our emotions. They don't have to change us, but just wake us up, because every day is a new day. So today, this moment is what matters most. The church has to change their attitude of a happy life after death to a happy life before passing. Happiness is now. There is no path to happiness, and it can't be owned or deserved with action, because it is a spiritual experience of just being happy now. The church manipulates us to do what they say to go to heaven after we die. But Jesus said heaven is on earth. Therefore, the church just needs to gently wake us up to the divinity within, to remember the soul who we already have always been and will be for eternity. Thank you.